Look, I think it's all a little strange, okay? I think it's a little strange how somebody landed a kill shot, flawlessly, perfectly, and that wasn't a professional hit. I saw footage of people that were surrounding the stage that kind of looked like they were giving signals. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, it was wild.
Very strange, and then they still haven't been caught. And now the strangest thing of all, right? And I'm just laying out like what's happening, what's going on. See, this kid, Nick Fuentes, has been pretending like he's this anti-Zionist voice, and he's challenging the Republican Party. He's challenging, the Con Inc. establishment, Matt Walsh, Charlie Kirk, whatever. And very suddenly, like this, the entire right wing has unified overnight. Yeah. All the Matt Walsh and Nick Fuentes are back together. Yeah, they're all coming together right now, and they're all mobilizing around this narrative that the left is responsible.
But in this crazy time where there's this massive genocidal psychosis that is overcoming the West, where you're seeing working class movements being crushed, like the economy is completely collapsing. Germany, France, European quality of life has tanked. We're seeing the end games of capitalism. So my main focus in my mindset is we need to form an anti-capitalist, anti-Zionist movement because our Western society has been so infiltrated. So I want to talk to anybody. I want if you have a strong anti-Israeli stance or strong anti-capitalist stance. So I want to bring you on and allow you a chance to speak because a lot of people don't want to do that. What is the goal of the ACP? Like I want to just ask you directly because there are a lot of people who have certain thoughts. So what is the vision? What is the goal, Chairman?
Well, I mean, we think that the left wing has never had its own party for a very long time in this country. And as a Marxist-Leninist, as a communist, my first instinct would be let's get the Communist Party USA back on. Let's get that shit popping in the social media age. Let's tap into the new generation. Let's get the fire lit so we can have some independent communist politics because I am a communist. It doesn't mean I'm unwilling to work with non-communists. I am. But as a communist, my first instinct is we communists need our own communist party. And why do we need a communist party? Because the Communist Party is supposed to be the most advanced vanguard organization for the entire working class. The capitalists have their own parties. They have the Democrats and the Republicans. And the working class doesn't have its own party. It doesn't have its own voice or representation. So that's what the purpose of a communist party. It's supposed to be a force that can withstand revolutionary times that I think we're living in, And so we tried with the CPUSA, but lo and behold, I mean, this shit has been infiltrated for a long time, and everybody knows about it, and it's true. It's actually true. And they're tied to the Democrats. So we were patient. We played the democracy. We waited for their 32nd National Congress, and they rigged it, And just recently, they even revamped their constitution and got rid of all the democracy shit. So we had to reconstitute the party. It's been done before, like in 1948. We reconstituted into something more simple, ACP. One of the reasons we chose that name, by the way, because we think the United States is kind of done. Like the USA is like the state is collapsing. We're facing like a civil war. We're facing collapse. We're facing total breakdown, So we're just like, okay, we're the American Communist Party. We're here for this land. We're here for the people. We're here for the history. We don't know what the future is going to hold necessarily, but, we can't really say that the USA is going to last for much longer, So we reconstitute into the ACP, and, what we're trying to do is we're trying to build dual power straight up. We're trying to build a strategy. We work within communities. We work within the labor movement, and we create a basic framework for organization, for order, for, I would even say, civilization, dialogue, making sure we can mediate disputes, and we can be a source of authority and leadership for communities left behind that don't have any. When the government's not responding to the call, when you've got a natural disaster, in the Carolina, in Texas, and across the country, and the government's not doing anything, I mean, who are you going to look to? You know, who are you gonna look to when shit pops off and you got these crazy neo-Nazi gangs running around and shit and these psychopaths, and what can you do, you know? So we're trying to we're studying the Chinese history, what happened with that, you know? How did the Communist Party in China take power? We think that's the most successful and advanced model.
And I've been very critical of the DSA structure as well, because you mentioned CPUSA, and I never looked at it because I saw so many of their members supporting Biden. I've seen shit liberate from them from the very beginning, and I had my own journey that I had as well. But to me, it was always clear, even before I was a Marxist, that we shouldn't be operating within these two parties. Even before I read theory, to me that was so obvious. So my idea was we need to start building our own parties, giving people a choice, building our own movements, instead of operating within a two-party system. That's why I see you guys doing the ACP. So I want to show you guys this, because this is what the right wing is doing now. I want to get what the ACP is thinking, what you're thinking about, because there is this massive tension in this country. The United States is, like you said earlier, and I've been saying as well, it's in a very tough spot. It's kind of cooked. Like now there are people cheering for civil war. This was the coordinated op by the right wing, and now there's a big messaging war now that the shooter has been comprehended. But you guys see there's this giant coordinated effort to start a civil war, to start these tensions. And as the cop cities are being built, as we are continuing to expand our military-industrial complex, China is dismantling us. They're increasing the quality of life for the workers. They are building and creating infrastructure projects. They're putting people to work. So what we want to do as communists is we're trying to bail you motherfuckers out. We're trying to show you guys the proper direction if you don't want your Western society to fail. Because these capitalists, they don't have a backup plan, guys. If you think they do, they really don't. Their plan is they want to go to war with Taiwan, and they want to take the multipolar world down with them. So are we going to allow that to happen, or are we going to mobilize a revolution? But anyway, I want to get your thoughts on this as well, because you've seen this coordinated effort, and I think Charlie Kirk and Nick Fuentes played a gigantic part of this, trying to start this civil war and the detention in the United States. What is the statement about the ACP about what's going on, especially following the assassination of Charlie Kirk with these rising tensions? What's your thoughts, Haas?
Well, the ACP has chosen not to even comment on it because it's not our problem. It ain't our problem. I mean, we got nothing to do with. I mean, it's just some shit that's some crazy violence. But I'll tell you my statement. I can speak for myself. Look, I don't know if you saw the recent Gray Zone article that was from someone inside Trump's circles and a friend of Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk, I don't really care about his motivations. Maybe it's because he was being pushed in a certain direction by the base. Who knows? But he was starting to kind of push back on Israel a little bit, And supposedly he was feeling intimidated. He was getting privately harassed. He was getting threatened. And you can't really trust all these people. I mean, Candace Owens, she said that he was undergoing a spiritual transformation. I don't know what to think. I think it's all a little strange. Okay. I think it's a little strange how somebody landed a kill shot, flawlessly, perfectly. And that wasn't a professional hit. I saw footage of people that were surrounding the stage that kind of looked like they were giving signals. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, it was wild.
Very strange. And then they still haven't been caught. And now the strangest thing of all, right? And I'm just laying out like what's happening, what's going on. See, this kid, Nick Fuentes, has been pretending like he's this anti-Zionist voice, and he's challenging the Republican Party. He's challenging, the Con Inc. establishment, Matt Walsh, Charlie Kirk, whatever. And very suddenly, like this, the entire right wing has unified overnight. Yeah. All Matt Walsh and Nick Fuentes are back together. Yeah. They're all coming together right now, and they're all mobilizing around this narrative that the left is responsible for this. So let's break that down for 1 second, okay? You and I both don't like Hassan Piker. I can tell you don't like him, right? And he's super unprincipled. I mean, he's not really whatever. But is Hassan Piker encouraging his community to shoot people and assassinate people? No, he's not. There's nobody on the, I mean, even Kyle Kulinski isn't, okay? I don't see anywhere on the left, as the right wing thinks it, because this, remember, this is in their own head what the left is. They're going to come after all of us. If we're not on board with Israel, if we're not on board with the neo-Nazi shit and the racist shit, we're all on the left, according to them, right? Doesn't even matter how principled we are. Doesn't even matter if we're independent of Democrats. They're trying to come after all of us now in one fell swoop and say that we're all responsible for this violence. Now, who does that benefit? I mean, look, I'm super critical of leftism. I always have been, okay? But the facts are the facts. It's not Nick Fuentes and his frog community of groypers who have been challenging Israel the most aggressively in this country. It's been the Palestinian movement, which is with, you know, it's leftist, you know. They're the ones who are the most aggressively critical of Israel. They're the ones who are creating the most, on the sense of influence, you know, opposition to the Zionist genocide in Gaza. So this is the way the Mossad is casting a lot of birds with one stone. One, they're going to start coming after the left to shut it down, the most powerful voice and force in this country that is fighting against the Zionist control of our politics and the policy of genocide in Gaza. Two, this is another interesting thing. Charlie Kirk, who was kind of seeming like he was rhetorically kind of getting more, just kind of like Tucker and Candace, more against Israel a little bit. They took him out. So he's gone. They're not going to have that problem anymore. Now they brought Nick Fuentes in, and you think, well, Nick Fuentes is much more aggressively anti-Israel. I don't think so in practice, okay? Yeah. In practice, no. In his rhetoric, in his words, yes. In his words, he hates the Jews and he hates Israel, whatever he says. But in practice, you know, he's mocking the death of Sinwar.
Yeah, I called him a useful idiot to design it. That's been my position, Haas. I explained this as well, but please continue. I think
you're totally right about that. He's trying to associate the anti-Zionist movement with racism. Exactly. How does that benefit an American movement against Zionism? It doesn't. It just divides Americans. And there's much more problems with, you know, his angle. His angle basically amounts to, you know, Zionism for white Christians. So exactly. It's the same ideology. And finally, you know, he's making sure that there's no way to have any Jewish opposition to Zionism either, because he's trying to make it seem like if you're against Zionism, then you're pro-Hitler, you know, which is nonsense, because Hitler was a Zionist, you know, with the Havara Agreement and whatnot.
Nick Fuentes has said multiple times that he's okay with Israel existing. There's many of these people on the right.
It's America first, Israel second for this kid. And I think he said as much. So, but there's an interesting thing going on. They tapped him in instead of Charlie Kirk, but instead of the fault lines and the divergence that was being created before, the right is unifying. And they're treating the Zionism thing as a secondary issue now, right? See, it's very strange. I'm not a huge Tucker Carlson fan, but at the exact moment that he started to diverge a little bit with the Zionist narrative, they unleashed Nick Fuentes on him, right?
Yeah.
You saw that, you know? And then, you know, the whole network of Israel's not scared of Nick Fuentes. They see him as an extremist and as a marginal figure. But the mainstream Con Inc., the grifters, you know, the people like Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens and all these people turning on Israel, that is you're fucking with their money at this point, okay? Because Israel has pumped in like millions and millions and millions into TPUSA, and the entire Con Inc. network of Republican grifters literally have been getting paid by the Zionist lobby. So for them to turn around and turn on that, that's like, you know, that's like Netanyahu sitting in his office being like, all that fucking money and that investment, they're going to fuck it up? Hell no, right? So it's a huge, and it's a huge infrastructure they built up to brainwash people They're not going to let that get turned against them, right? So they fear that a lot more, in my opinion. And now the whole right wing is unified to squash the left and blame the left for political violence. I want to break this down a little bit, all right?
Regardless, take the time, man. Go for it, man.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Regardless of our views about Luigi, I'm not a big fan of adventurism myself. That's my personal view. I don't support. I'm a law-abiding citizen. But Luigi was
I didn't shoot the guy. Remember, guys, we didn't shoot him. We didn't shoot him. It's not on us.
Yeah, we have nothing. We have nothing to apologize for. We have nothing to disavow. We have nothing to condemn. Nick Fuentes went on his stream, and you know what he said? He said, "You leftists, you better cry like Dean Withers cried." I
saw that.
Oh, I'm like, tell me more. Interesting. You gonna make me cry like a little bitch on camera over some guy I didn't even fucking know? Fuck you. Are you crying about all the people you're cheering on their death on? He called for Jackson, my friend, to be killed in Yemen.
Yeah, I saw that.
He mocked the death of Sinwar. He wasn't crying about that. He mocked the death of a bunch of people in Lebanon who got killed by the pagers. He wasn't crying about that. And I'm expected to cry. Look, I think it's a terrible thing, frankly. I tend to think the loss of human life is negative. In general, if you have a family, it's terrible for the kids. I'm not here to glorify anything. I'm under no obligation to disavow or talk about it. I have nothing to fucking do with it. Okay. Exactly. But here's the thing. Even the Luigi kid, Luigi was not on the left. Look at the reading list of Luigi. It was Yuval Harari, and it was this. So, look, the leftists are getting flack for the memes and the celebrations and shit. Look, I don't indulge in that myself, but I'm not going to sit here and insult my own intelligence and insult the intelligence of everybody, pretending that these disgusting far-right degenerates are somehow people that have profound sentimental value for the sanctity of human life. We all saw the George Floyd memes for years. We all saw the way in which they were mocking the life of all the people they disagree with when they were killed. And now suddenly they're gonna grandstand and say that all these leftists are so inhumane and so whatever. I don't fucking buy it. Okay. Yeah, and I think as a country, I'm against this fed years of lead attempt to create a strategy of tension and have people kill each other and have political violence. But everybody needs to rediscover the sacredness of human life. Okay. Whether they think they're right wing or they're leftist, everybody needs to. And I'm not going to allow the far right to get away with pinning all of it on leftists when they themselves have been a huge factor in the equation when it comes to the nihilism, the psychopathy, the spiral into violence and violent rhetoric. Again, I mentioned the George Floyd memes, but it's the tip of the iceberg. How many of these people on the right are mocking the children in Gaza being slaughtered right now? How many of them are trivializing the genocide going on there? And what happened in Venezuela when that speedboat came out? Those were civilians on that speedboat. It got blown up under I think it was an unproven accusation that it was a drug boat or some shit, right? Was it proven?
Complete bullshit. I broke it. It doesn't make any sense that you would smuggle. Apparently it's supposed to be a giant cartel.
Yeah.
That they had
they cheered for it. They celebrated it.
I get your point.
In 2019, when we found out that Navy SEALs went and slaughtered civilians in Korea, who was cheering for it? Who was celebrating it? When it comes to violence against U.S. citizens, these people call for violence against me. They call for violence against Jackson. I'm sure they call for violence against you.
They're doing this now. Against me now, yep.
And you know what? I'll even go farther and say something. I'm not a huge ally of the LGBT movement and the transgender movement or anything like that. But I think I don't celebrate when there's the self-harm that's going on among some of these transgenders. But I remember there was an instance when that happened and the whole right wing was like laughing and celebrating about it. And I'm like, regardless of your views on that entire phenomena, I think it's pretty fucked up to celebrate, somebody taking their own life regardless of what the reason is, because they're that, miserable and whatever. So I see on the right, they're always mocking and making fun of people who die, regardless if they have families, regardless of whatever. They're always calling for death all the time. And leftists are doing it to Charlie Kirk, which, again, I don't support. But to sit here and then try to then say we need to shut down free speech for leftists, we need to weaponize the state to dissolve and destroy the political left. This is exactly the fascist Mossad agenda that's in play right now. They're shutting down the left, aka the Palestine movement, aka all the voices like you and me who are not Democrats, who they fear the most. Because why? We're trying to build something totally new in U.S. politics. Whether it's ACP with what I'm doing, whether it's what you're doing, we have a similar goal. We're trying to completely from the ground up build a new power base that's run by the people for the people. That's not in the system. That's not part of the duopoly with the Democrats and the Republicans. And Nick, that is a left-wing position, in my opinion. The left wing means political change. That's what it meant since the French Revolution.
Absolutely.
The party of movement and the party of change. That's the left wing. We challenge the power. We don't accept the status quo. We are the revolutionaries, right? That's what the left wing means at the end of the day. And that's why, of course, they're targeting the left wing. Overnight, Nick Fuentes' entire lie that he's somehow this dissident who's challenging this powers that be completely disappeared. And for a guy who prides himself, he called me a pussy because I can't name the Jew, right? For a guy that prides himself and distinguishes himself on the basis of, the Jewish power structure and Israel and all this kind of stuff, he's not even raising any skepticism about the assassination of Charlie Kirk, despite how sketchy it is and weird it is. Like he's not even entertaining that there could maybe. He'll say that they did 9/11. He'll say that this and that, but he's not going to sit here and at least be a little skeptical of the mainstream narrative of what we're being told. Yeah. Some Antifa super soldier, I guess, had a clean shot, 200-yard clean shot right into the jugular. I guess he got lucky. And then disappeared without a trace. I mean, it's literally like the fucking movie Shooter or some shit. He had a sniper. He dismantled it. He's like John Wick or some shit. He put it in his briefcase and he left. And that wasn't a professional. That was just some Antifa person, I guess. And we're supposed to fucking believe that nonsense. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but
that was a fantastic rant. You guys know I'm a rant enthusiast at RBN, so that was a fantastic rant. What I've been doing is I essentially going back to your we called them out for their hypocrisy. I love that part. They cheered on the death of so many people. And I brought up George Floyd, and I use them all the time because I know they will fall for my trap. They do it. I've been ratioing these idiots left and right because they'll say, don't you know that George Floyd deserved to die? He was a drug addict. Okay, so you believe he deserved to die because he had a lifestyle and did stuff that you disagree with. So how can you criticize anyone who's laughing at Charlie Kirk? So the only thing that I'm doing, I'm playing a character. I'm telling you guys up front. I'm holding a mirror up at them. If you guys wondering what I'm doing on X, I am quite literally quoting the same thing they said about George Floyd, for example. I had the joke where I said that Charlie Kirk lasted one day without talking shit about black people. That's the joke verbatim that they repeat, every year. They say, George Floyd is 1 year sober. So I'm holding a mirror up to you guys. I know some people may not like my style recently, but I am playing a character, exposing their hypocrisy. And they realize that that's why they're not calling me out, because they know I will quickly expose them. And everyone who has been ratioed. That's why a lot of their supporters been begging them to go after me, but they realize what I'm doing. They don't want to fall for the trap. I am exposing them, and they're going to. I'll make this other point, then we'll get more into Nick Fuentes. I'm taking this time to tell the truth about Charlie Kirk and what he has sold in discourse, because that's the best option we have, because they're going to go after us no matter what. fam. One of the most deeply unserious things I've seen people say, and bless your soul, I'm not mad at you guys, but God bless your souls. But I see people say, hey, man, we got to be careful what we say, because if we say something crazy, then they're going to crack down on us. Fam, they already killed Charlie Kirk. Whatever the fuck they have planned, they are already going through. So the only thing we can do right now, since we know they have this game plan, they already operate, they started operation on, the best thing we can do is tell the truth. And that is what I'm doing by holding the mirror up to these people. And we're going to hold the mirror up to Nick Fuentes.